Well, let's go ahead and get started here. I guess a couple people got to leave early, so we'll make that happen. My name is Paul from Guaranteed Rate, and I want to thank you for coming. Uh, the credit thing's interesting. It'll make or break deals, and the goal for today is really learn about it, become dangerous enough to talk about it, but have a great resource on sending someone to get corrected and then being able to close the deal. A little while back, I met Skyler. I had a client come to me, bought a great home here. It was $1 million deal, $1 million loan, and everything looked good. They had plenty of income. They were making over $250,000. They had stock RSU benefits. They had bonuses. So the income-wise, they were fine when I talked to them. The debt, they said they only had a couple cars. They didn't own a home. So on the debt side, they had credit cards. I didn't think it would be too bad. But then I ran their credit. And the credit was below 600, right? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, that's not going to be ideal. The great thing with Guaranteed Rate is we have loans for about everybody. I have a loan for that 500 FICO person. Now, they're like one tire blowout away from bankruptcy, right? But I have a loan for them if they really want a house. It's not ideal, and the rate's not, it's not your great rate. But for her, we looked at it. I did give her a rate. It was in the 8% plus range. And it started to tilt the debt to income ratio because of the high mortgage payment. So it was tilting it the wrong way. And so I told her, I go, unless you're in a hurry, you need to fix this. And that's where I introduced them to Skyler and his team. And what a difference. Months later, we went and revisited it, ran the credit. It went high enough to where it would work on a jumbo loan. Got the rate down, half of that rate that I had quoted her, and everything balanced back out. She closed, and it was a perfect day, right? Realtor was happy, obviously. They had a nice commission. I closed the deal, and she got into her home. And it's knowing kind of where you need to talk to people about that you're going to learn today. I mean, take great notes. Ask a lot of questions because you got them here. There's good info. The one thing, she wrote me a thank you letter at the very end. And typically it's like, we love the house, and she was ecstatic about the house. But the one thing that she was really thankful for was these guys. She was thankful that they taught her about credit, the right way to use it, where she thought she had to max out her credit cards because that's how you get credit. No one ever taught her. She didn't know. She was making a lot of money. She really didn't care at that point. But she was thankful for the education of just understanding how it really works. What's the credit game? And that was the biggest takeaway from that lesson right there was, she now knows, and she'll keep her credit in line, and she knows the ratios and everything else. So without further ado, I give you Skyler, who flew in from Colorado. Now, he flew in the other day when we had a lot of snow. So being from Colorado, it didn't affect him at all. But I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Paul. Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving us a few minutes of your day. I know how important every minute is, and my goal is to help make sure that you learn even just one more thing than you knew about credit before you came in. Paul hit it right on the head. Most of your borrowers, most of your clients, they don't even know enough to be dangerous about credit. So hopefully we can maybe clear up any misconceptions, just give you kind of a foundation that you can use in your daily business. I've started working with a lot more agents in the past 6 months to a year because I read online, which means it's got to be true, that like 73% of first-time home buyers meet with an agent before they meet with a lender, which means you are often the first ones to touch the people that need Paul and I the most. And you only have so much time in the day. Not that we ignore people that don't have pre-approval letters, but they definitely go to the top of the priority list. And you're coming in contact with our clients, and we just want to make sure that you're as best educated as you can be in order to provide the best service and education. Little background on myself real quickly. My name is Skyler Weitzel. Company I work for is Continental Credit. I've been with them for over 5 years. Our home office is back in Denver, Colorado, also known as the home of the Broncos that don't know how to win on the football field. So I love coming to Boise. Sorry I brought the snow. Just a real quick show of hands. How many of you have pulled your own credit in the last 6 months? Okay. How many of you have had a lender, like a mortgage lender, a car dealership, or a credit card company? How many of you have had a hard inquiry in the past 6 months? Okay. If you didn't raise your hand for either one of those, maybe we should talk. And really what I want to go into today is like the true cost of credit. because credit affects all of us. Obviously, our number one focus is selling, listing, and closing on real estate transactions. But by the end of this presentation, hopefully you'll have a much better idea of just how credit affects all of us, not just our clients, but us as individuals. I'll be the first to admit, credit itself is like the 17th sexiest subject of the home buying process, and it's probably not even in the top 20. Kind of right in between like title insurance and flood certs, like not really like riveting material. One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about a pretty dry subject is when I started working for Continental, I was just like most of the people that you meet. I thought I had good credit because I paid my bills on time. Obviously, there's a whole lot more that goes into it than that. But I felt like I was at least average credit. And one of the perks of working for Continental and traveling every other week is that if you've got credit issues, they'll fix your credit for free. So I'm like, I don't need that. I'm fine. Until they pulled my credit and I was at a 560. And I stopped bragging about how fine my credit was. My credit was fine, like when my wife tells me everything's fine, which means it's far from it. I'll be the first to admit I got a pretty first and last name combination that you don't see very often. Like most of the Skylers I meet are female, which is lucky for me. I've got a huge ego to offset any sort of inferiority complex from my hippie parents giving me a girl's name. There's even fewer Weitzels. When I pulled my credit, the reason why I was at a 560 is because there was a woman named Kathy Woodward from Nashville, Tennessee that was showing up on my credit report. And if Kathy had an 800 with like a couple 20-year mortgages and a great American Express card, I would just send her a Christmas card every year and pretend I was none the wiser and just keep piggybacking on her score. I'm sure Kathy's a really great person, but based on all of her stuff that was showing up on my credit report, pretty sure she broke out in hives when she paid a bill on time. There were 2 IRS tax liens, a foreclosure, a car repossession, and more medical collections than I've had hot meals in a year. And all of her stuff was showing up on my report. So that was my first real eye-opening experience to kind of the intricacies of credit and the just sheer lack of accountability when it comes to what shows up on your credit report. Everybody knows the 3 different credit bureaus, right? Can we name them? Equifax, Experian. Cool. So those companies are nothing more than data warehouses. Not quite as secure as like the NSA building in the middle of the Nevada desert that's recording all of our phone calls. I like to keep them honest every now and then. But the bureaus have basically said, we handle too much information to be right all the time. That's literally their excuse. So their criteria for accountability and accuracy is the kind of thing that if you told your boss this after this meeting, you would not have that same boss anymore. If you told them, I'm going to be right about 3/4 of the time. I got too many clients, too many listings, too many numbers. I just can't keep it all in track. So that's what I'm going to do for you. 75%. Is that cool? But that's what we have to accept from the bureaus. Because they've said if the first 5 letters of a person's name matches up, there's a good chance they're going to merge that information. So if you're ever thinking of naming your son or daughter the same name as you or your spouse, unless your first name's George and your last name's Foreman, it's going to end up being something that you regret. That's not why Kathy was showing up on my credit report, though. They've also said that if 7 of 9 social security numbers match up, there's a good chance they're going to merge that information as well. And that's really just designed to scare the heck out of you and make you wonder how many people out there might have 7 common social security numbers as me. When I found this out, it was a simple fix. I sent in a verification of identity, paycheck stub, utility bill, and a copy of my social security card. She was off my report in 30 days, went from a 560 to a 680. Just one example of a quick fix that we can provide for our clients, especially people that don't even know what's on their report. So knowing what is reporting is critical. If you've used like a Credit Karma or any of the different online scoring sites, I've got the Credit Karma app on my phone, and that's the nicest thing I'll say about Credit Karma for the next 20 minutes. Because Credit Karma in my world is like the Zillow of credit scoring, just as an example. So every time when you pull your own credit for educational purposes, it's referred to as a soft inquiry. So it's never going to show up on your credit report. When you have a lender, a car dealership, or a credit card company pull your credit, that's referred to as a hard inquiry, and that's going to actually cost you between 3 and 5 points. So any online scoring site, just take those numbers with a grain of salt. Well, all you really should be concerned about is the data, and that's what's really important. I mean, that knowledge is power expression is really true, and if you don't know what's on your report, it could be costing you a lot of money. Thank you.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Why does it cost you 3 to 5 points every time they pull your credit?
Because you're asking for financing. And there's got to be some way to track how many times you try and borrow money.
Okay.
Just pulling your credit once or twice is not going to have a huge impact on your score. But from an underwriting perspective in the lending world, when you see somebody that has 6, 8, 10 inquiries in a 3 to 6 month period, it's like the reddest of red flags. Like somebody is desperate to try and borrow money from anybody who will lend it to them.
Okay.
Thank you for asking the question.
Those are hard inquiries, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
If you have questions, please do exactly what just happened, because I'm married. I've got 2 teenagers. I feel really awkward talking in complete sentences without getting interrupted. So, and if you wait for me to pause, I think I get paid by the word sometimes, so I might not pause very much. So if something doesn't make sense, or if you want me to explain a little further, definitely stop me. Federal Trade Commission, everybody's favorite regulatory agency, estimates that 80% of credit reports have some type of detrimental error. It might just be a misspelled name or an incorrect address, or it could be like the Kathy Woodward example. So statistically, in this room, there's probably only about a half a dozen of us with perfect error-free credit. I know I'm one of them. Not sure who the other 4 or 5 of you are, but lucky for you. If you're not, we can help with that as well. The amazing fact is credit is going to impact just about every aspect of your financial world. And the difference between a 620 credit score, which is conventional loan all day long, and a 720 credit score can literally cost you millions over a lifetime. And I'm going to dig into some of the details here in a minute, but I just really want you to start thinking about not just what your score is at, but all the people that you've met in the past 3 to 6 months, let's say, or all the people that throughout 2019, you drove them around to open houses on the weekends, and you spent a lot of time and effort on them only to get them over to a lender and find that these people shouldn't even have a library card, let alone a mortgage. That time that you invest with your clients is probably the most valuable commodity that you have. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but time is super important, and the less you spend of it with people that can't close right away, the more you're going to be able to get those listings and the transactions from people that are ready. There's no such thing as a bad referral, even though we all know there is such thing as a bad referral. There is such thing as using your time efficiently. And if somebody can't close in the next 30 to 60 days, you just don't have the luxury of investing too much with them until they're ready. And we all know this, but sometimes you need to hear it from a different person. These are the numbers, and this is really kind of terrifying. When I do a consultation for a client, the first thing I usually ask them is who their car insurance company is. One, it kind of puts them back on their heels, but it's a real piece of education that nobody has out there. Your car insurance premiums, and oftentimes your homeowner's insurance premiums, have more to do with your credit score than your driving record. If you have a 620 credit score, and if you and I drive the exact same car, I'm at a 720, you're at a 620. On average, you're going to pay between $75 and $100 more per month just to insure that vehicle. It's $1,200 a year. If you're a 2-vehicle household, it's $2,400 a year. You take that money and put it in a low-risk mutual fund that returns 7%, you're looking at $80,000 per vehicle over a 30-year time frame. And that's just a vehicle insurance rates. Then you look at the interest rate on that loan. The average interest rate on a car loan for a credit score at 620 or below is 14.24%. 720 and above, 4.5%. It's an extra $200. So sometimes the only thing worse than the credit score is the debt to income ratios. That's a client that I can help in several different ways. Because if you're a 2-vehicle household, you're losing $200 a month for your car insurance, and between $300 and $400 a month on the interest rates on your loans. That's nothing to scoff at. That's like, and the sad reality is people look at their car insurance the way I look at my Starbucks bill for the month. It's just like money that's gone. Like I don't put it on a budget. It's not anything that I ever track. But if I look at my statements at the end of the month, that's $150 on coffee, which is still ridiculous. Thank God I use company money for Starbucks. But my point is, it's one of those things that you just pay without thinking about. And the best visual example I can give is like, imagine like the Liberty scales. On one side of that scale is the money that's being stolen from you due to less than perfect credit. On the other side of that scale is asset accumulation. If you have less than perfect credit, you literally cannot save fast enough and accumulate enough assets to balance that scale out. I mean, if you're getting $400, $500, $600 a month stolen from you from Wells Fargo because they want your money more than they want to go create a couple thousand fake credit card accounts, and you're buying new khakis for Jake at State Farm every time he makes a new commercial, like that money cannot be, you can't compensate for that. So I'll be the first to admit my perspective is super jaded because this is what I do. But there's a lot of people out there that are going through life in the mid 600s and they have no idea what a big impact that's having on their, at the end of the day, the end of the month, the end of the year with their finances. And when I ask somebody, what kind of car do you have? Who's your insurance company? What's your interest rate? If you're looking at $300,000-$400,000 that you're going to lose in real time, in real money losses over a 30-year period, take whatever you make in a year and divide 300,000 by that number. And are you really willing to work that many more years before you retire just to drive your car? It's a common denominator that all of us share, whether you're driving to work from a home that you have a mortgage on, or whether you're sneaking out the side entrance of an apartment complex that you don't want your friends to know you live at. We all drive. And there's a lot of ways that credit is impacting people that they have no idea. Credit cards, I don't really get too much into that because everybody's credit card usage is different. Obviously, credit cards, according to creditcards.com, average interest rate on a credit card for somebody at 620 or below is 23.23%, which means for every $1,000 they charge on that credit card, if they just make minimum payments, they're going to pay $800 in interest, which is, let's pay $1,800 for $1,000 worth of product or services. Not the best economic formula. But housing obviously is the big one. I wasn't buying property 30 years ago, but for those of you that maybe have been in this for a while, or what you remember what your parents bought their house for in the late 80s, early 90s, average home price 30 years ago was $30K. Right now it's around $300,000. Now, I hate bringing politics into this, but no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, whether you're a lock her up, lock him up, lock them all up, I don't care what your thoughts are, we can all agree the government's going to spend too much money. And so we're going to have inflation. So if trends continue over the next 30 years, the way they have for the last 30 years, average home price, $4.2 million. So if you can't buy for $300 today, that's what you can't sell for in 30 years. I have a hard time wrapping my head around those numbers, I'll be completely candid, because what that tells me is that like a retail worker at Walmart is going to be a six-figure position, which I still can't quite get to burrow into the rational part of my brain. But if you told somebody 30 years ago that a loaf of bread was going to be $4, they'd think you were crazy. So this is what we can expect, and these are just the real numbers that affects all of us, no matter what kind of license we carry, no matter what kind of background we have. If you have less than perfect credit, you have no reason not to at least explore the idea on how to fix it. Just like the example that Paul gave with that loan. She had no idea because nobody ever taught her. I'm a big believer that the credit card companies took page 1 out of the tobacco industry's book, because if you can get a client at 18, you probably have a client for life. I mean, I quit smoking a year ago, but I'm still using my credit cards. I don't think people ever get out of the credit card game. I've never known anybody who won in the credit card game. I tried to be the first. I failed. When my wife and I first got married, I got a Discover card. I'm like, babe, get this huge cashback bonus award. It's going to be so sweet. And so we spent everything. We charged everything we could on our Discover card. We were writing our mortgage checks with the cash advance checks from Discover, and I didn't realize I was paying 35% interest because they treated that as a cash advance because, again, nobody ever told me. But I got a $1,200 cashback bonus award, and I was like, this is it. This is my golden ticket. This is 1,200 reasons I'm never going to be wrong in an argument ever again. I showed it to her, and she's like, cool. I'm like, oh man, that's like fine or okay. 5 minutes later, she comes back with all the statements from the previous year, and we spent $4,800 in interest to get that $1,200 cashback bonus award. So now I'm currently 3,400 arguments from winning, because that's just how the math works. But it's really amazing how little people know about this, which is pretty awesome for me because it gives me really good job security. But if you can even share one of these pieces of advice with your clients, then it's going to help everybody. Yes.
Just a quick question about the car insurance. So if you've had the same car insurance for years, should you go back and ask your car insurance company to re-pull?
100%. 100%.
Is that a hard?
It's a soft inquiry because they're not actually lending you money, or again, you're not financing a product. You're just buying a service. But every 6 months, I'm calling my insurance company, trying to get a better quote. I'm kind of sick in the head. I also like to call DirecTV every July and tell them I'm going to cancel if they don't give me the NFL ticket for free. I like to call AT&T and complain about why I'm spending $450 a month in air and why my service sucks. So it's kind of one of my things. But yeah, I always encourage, if you've seen your score improve, it's always a good idea to get a new quote. And most insurance companies are going to try and beat who you currently have anyway, but that's a big deal. Even though it's only might only be $30-40 a month, that adds up, obviously. It's pop quiz time. If anybody gets both these questions right, Paul has volunteered to buy you lunch, so he's already done his part. Anybody want to take a guess as to why you see such a huge variance in scores from one bureau to the next? There's two very distinct reasons, and I'm not going to make fun of you if you don't know the answer. Anybody? All right, you'll be experts by the time this meeting's over. So the three credit bureaus are all governed by FICO, which is the Fair Isaac Corporation. That's basically the governing body of risk analysis. The ex-CEO of FICO is actually on our board. So when it comes to hearing knowledge straight from the horse's mouth, we've got the horse in office. FICO has created 55 different algorithms for risk analysis and credit scoring. Every industry is going to use different algorithms. When I applied for my AT&T cell phone account, they did a soft poll. All AT&T really cared about was making sure I didn't have collections from Sprint and T-Mobile. When I have State Farm pull my credit report to get a quote from them, they just want to make sure I don't have collections from Progressive and Geico. They're very industry specific. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have approved 8 of those 55 algorithms for use in the mortgage industry. And of those 8, there are 3 universal algorithms that every single mortgage lender throughout the United States is going to use no matter what in order to have some continuity from state to state. Those 3 algorithms are unique to each individual bureau. And when Paul pulls a credit report, for example, on a borrower, Guaranteed Rate is temporarily leasing those 3 algorithms from each individual bureau for a split second in time to calculate that data. Now, a mortgage credit pull is going to look at everything. Obviously, it's the largest purchase. They want to know about every single trade line and your bill and your payment history across all industries. It's also where most of the confusion comes from. Because if I applied for a mortgage, a credit card, a car loan, and an insurance policy today, I'm going to get 4 different scores. Enter the Credit Karmas of the world. All of those different scores are very unique to those industries. But the reason why I bring this up and why it's so important is my team back in Denver, they live and breathe these algorithms. So if you think back to like high school and college, there's always that one person that always aced all the tests and screw up the curve because they did this really audacious thing like, I think it's called studying or something. If you know the answer to the question, it's easier to manipulate or massage the data in order to extract maximum points. For example, my team knows that an on-time payment on Experian is a multiplier of 1.1. An on-time payment on Equifax is a multiplier of 1.3. So if we're able to crunch that data, we can really maximize every potential point available in order to boost that score. Because sometimes the difference between 639 and 641 can be 1/8 of a point. So being able to bring those points to the surface is what we really pride ourselves on. And our number one job is to help lenders close more loans and agents get more transactions. That's it. We're 100% referral based, so I live off of creating relationships with my referral partners. And if they give me a bunch of referrals and I'm not helping them close more loans, that's a surefire way to make sure that I don't get more referrals. And we all have that same relationship with our professional network. So you've got different algorithms, so they calculate the data differently. And then there's also something referred to as positive and negative contracts, which in this room, we all know what positive contracts are. In my world, a positive contract is a creditor that reports every data point to the bureau, good, bad, and indifferent. Negative contracts, they do not report anything but the bad stuff. So who's your cell phone provider?
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile. If you pulled your credit report, I guarantee you there's no indication of you being a T-Mobile customer on your credit report, regardless of how much you pay. Because T-Mobile, utility companies, internet service providers, car insurance companies, they have what's referred to as a negative reporting contract in that they don't have any skin in the game. So they're not losing anything if you don't pay T-Mobile your monthly payment. You're going to get a late fee, maybe $20 or $30, but they're never going to report you as late to the bureaus because they never report you as on time to the bureaus. So isn't that convenient? Positive contracts report everything. Negative contracts only report the bad stuff. Best real world example I can give of this, my wife and I have been married 22 years, positive reporting contract. She remembers everything with total digital recall, pure technicolor. My youngest son, he's 18, he's a senior in high school. He's on his, what's today? Thursday. He's on his 4th girlfriend this year. The only thing I know about those relationships was the girl's first name, and then when his heart was broken for 5 minutes before his heart was made whole again. So positive reports everything, negative only reports the breakup. If you've got kids, I'm sure you understand. So why is this important? Every single week, I've got at least one client, it's not the same guy, but I'll have at least one client call me and say, look, Sky, I did it again. I got more month left over at the end of my money as opposed to money left over at the end of my month. I owe Capital One a $200 minimum payment, and I owe Verizon $225. I should pay Verizon, right? Because I can't afford to live without my cell phone. Because that's how the rational part of our brain tends to work. And the rational, common sense part of our brain is the exact opposite of how the credit bureaus look at this data. So you can skip your cell phone payment for a month, maybe even 2 months, sometimes even 3. Pay what's going to hurt you or help you. Cell phone company doesn't matter, $20 to $30 late fee. Missing a credit card payment, easy 75 to 100 point loss. So pay what's critical, pay what reports. I don't remember that everything I need to learn in life I learned in kindergarten poster. I don't know if it said pay your bills on there. Maybe it was just so assumed that they thought they didn't need to print it. But in a perfect world, you pay everything. If you're short on funds, you got to at least pay what reports. Any questions? I just realized I've been talking nonstop, so I want to make sure I'm not putting you to sleep. The 4 industries that use credit for risk analysis, obviously what pays all of us, the mortgage industry. You've got the automobile industry, you've got the credit card industry, and then insurance and the online industry is kind of, they use a lot of those same algorithms. Who here has Credit Karma on their phone? A small number. If you've looked at your Credit Karma score, I will bet you as many dollars as your Credit Karma score says your score is, that it's probably 30 to 40 points higher than a mortgage lender would tell you, and possibly 60 to 70 points higher than your car dealership. Credit Karma uses what's called a Vantage scoring model, which is technically one of the 55 scoring algorithms. However, Credit Karma is really, really forgiving, and they do not factor in derogatory data that's older than 12 months old into their scoring formula. So if you've been credit clean for the last 12 months, Credit Karma is going to give you a really big pat on the back. And they also put a lot of emphasis on credit card usage. And then the bad stuff, just going to kind of pretend that isn't even there. So it's just like Zillow. If you want an overly inflated estimate of what your house is going to sell for, go to Zillow. If you want an overly inflated sense of what your credit score is, Credit Karma is a great source to that. Just so I tell everybody, take all those scores with a grain of salt, or a lot of salt. I can speed this up. The pie chart, this is basically the visual representation of how a score is created, plain and simple. When that client says, I don't understand credit, this is what I dive into with them. And we go through each individual piece to highlight where they can help manage their own situation and the aspects that we can help as well. If anybody would like this PowerPoint, because I see an iPhone there, I got so many pictures on my iPhone that look like a street light, and I swear it's a full moon. If you want this slideshow, just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to share it with you. If one of these slides helps you educate a client and saves you some time, then it's the best email I'll send all day. So just to breeze through this super, super quickly, because I know I'm almost out of time anyway. Payment history is obviously the biggest piece of the score, because if you pay your bills, that's the best way to help your score. Debt utilization is all about credit cards. Everybody in here have at least one credit card? Please say yes. Yeah. Okay. Anybody have the original green Amex that Seinfeld used to do commercials for? They still make those, right? Technically, a no-limit American Express card is not considered a revolving account because it doesn't have a preset spending limit. I don't ever have clients come to me and they're like, hey, my only credit card is a no-limit Amex. That doesn't really exist in the credit repair world. But I like to tell my referral partners, if all you have is an Amex with no limit, you don't technically have a revolving account. And with credit cards being 30% of your score, that's despite what Dave Ramsey and Susie Ormond might say, that cash is king and credit's the devil. If you don't have at least one credit card, you're giving up 60 to 80 points of your score. What do you think is the best debt utilization ratio? If you've got a $1,000 limit on your credit card, what do you want that balance to be at in order to fully maximize your score? 200? Anybody else? 500?
It's like 75%.
It's actually 10%.
Is it really? So
$100. A lot of people in the industry tell clients 30% is kind of like the target.
Media volume set to 10%.
Okay. What was I saying about the NSA listening to us? So if you have a $1,000 credit card and you owe $501 or more, you're basically getting 0 points. If you're at 50% or above, it's the exact same. You're getting 0 points. If you can get it down to 30%, you're getting about 3/4 of the potential points possible, but 10% is the true sweet spot. So if you've only got one credit card and you use that credit card throughout the month, your score is going to fluctuate along with your balance. Your balance goes up, your score goes down, and vice versa. The difference between a 30% utilization and a 10% utilization can be as much as 15 or 20 points if you only have one credit card. I mean, yes.
Can I ask, so what does it mean if you use your credit card, then you pay your balance down every month? Like, how does that, is that negatively or positively?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
I mean, the perfect way to use a credit card is to use it and then immediately jump on their website and pay it off if you want to avoid paying interest. The only drawback to paying your card down to 0 is if you don't use it again the next month, you're foregoing a positive payment check mark. Positive payments are like coins in the original Mario Brothers game, not to date myself, but you want to accumulate as many as you can. You don't want to lose any of them. So if you don't make a payment, that's one less coin that's being added to your total, if that makes sense. Yes?
So along those lines, if you have, say, 3 credit cards, would you suggest doing the same thing for all 3 of them? Use each of them every month, pay them all off every month.
If you can. If you've got 3 credit cards, and let's just say, for example, they're all at their limits. You got a $200 Lowe's card, you got a $1,000 Capital One card, and a $10,000 Discover. If they're all maxed out, where do you think most people are going to apply extra payments to? That biggest card, right? Because our inclination is that card's the most out of control, it's costing me the most in interest, when in fact you're going to get a better point increase by paying $180 to that Home Depot card and getting it down to $20 than you would sending $5,000 to Discover. So it's all about getting the best bang for your buck, and we've really put a lot of emphasis on that and helping people manage their credit cards, because that is absolutely where the most mistakes are made. Yes, Paul?
So if you had a client that's carrying a balance on average, I mean, they just carry that balance, and they're not going to pay it down, is it better for them to ask for an increase in the limit?
That's the quickest way to drive the ratios down. If you don't have $8,000 to pay to Discover, you call Discover and say, hey, I'm looking to remodel my bathroom. I'd love to use my Discover card. Can you increase my limit based solely on my history as a Discover customer? In other words, I don't want a new hard inquiry because I don't want to lose 3 to 5 points. Yeah. But if you double my limit, that's going to help me out. And Discover's going to go, well, we gave you $10,000 and you've owed us $9,500 since you opened the account. Suffice it to say that if we double your limit, you're probably going to double your balance. So sure, it's a great quick fix if you don't have the cash to pay those down. Personally, I've got 2 credit cards. I got a $500 Lowe's card that I've had for forever. They're always trying to get me to increase my limit. I got a $25,000 Capital One card. My $500 Lowe's card, these hands look like they touch hammers and wrenches. No, they cash commission checks, okay? So if I'm spending more than $500 at Lowe's, I should just go straight to urgent care. Like, I'm going to end up there anyway, just save myself the heartache. Besides, Lowe's is where homeowners go that think they know what they're doing. Home Depot is for actual contractors. My Capital One card, I've only got a big limit on that because when I'm in town, I go out to dinner and drinks with my coworkers. And it's always the person that's had like 9 Patrons that decides it's time to play credit card roulette. If you haven't played credit card roulette, you're lucky. If you play with me, you're safe because I always get shot, like without exception. But on my Capital One card, I don't carry that with me when I'm out of town because I'm at least smart enough to know what my habits are. But I put my Netflix and my Amazon Prime bill on that Capital One card. That way, no matter what, I'm going to have a purchase every month, and then my payment is auto-drafted out of my checking account. That's one example of how we try and educate our clients and also keep them from making mistakes. For the client that says, I can't get credit because I don't have credit, we've got 2 secured credit card sites that we send clients to that don't pull credit, so you're guaranteed to be approved. Only requires $200 to load up the account, and it reports to all 3 credit bureaus. And then I'm going to do that exact same thing. I'm going to tell them, put your Amazon Prime, put your Netflix bill on your credit card, and then go shred the credit card. Like, you can't shoot yourself in the foot if you leave your gun at home. I mean, it's literally that simple. Any other questions about credit cards? Actually, if there are questions, I'm going to stick around for a little bit after the meeting because in case we're not covering all the essential questions that you have. But I know I don't want to keep you all here too late.
Hey, Skyler, is there a number of cards, like too many?
There's no such thing as too many. I mean, if there's a department store in Colorado, my wife has a credit card for them. Not a bad thing. It's just her 20 credit cards dilute her per credit card value. For me, it's really simple. I got 2 cards. Each card is worth 15% of my score. So my score is going to fluctuate along with my credit card usage. My wife, on the other hand, she could max out 3 or 4 of her credit cards, and her score isn't really going to drop because she's got 12 or 15 others to offset those. Yes.
So one question I've always been curious about, kids with credit cards to build their credit.
Both
Good idea, bad idea?
I think it's a great idea, as long as you don't let them have a card.
Totally.
Yeah, both of my kids are authorized users on both of my cards. When my oldest went in to get his first card when he was 18, he was at a 700 credit score, and they didn't call him Lance, they called him Mr. Weitzel, which was kind of weird because he was 18. I definitely encourage it. Just they don't have to know about it, and you don't have to issue a card for them.
So you just put them as an authorized user essentially.
Yep. Yep. The only caveat to that is, and Paul can kind of go into more details, but if it's a Fannie Mae backed loan, the borrower themselves have to have at least 2 trade lines that are solely in their name before you're allowed to add authorized user accounts. Because like if my kids went and applied for a mortgage, having only the inherited credit history that I've shared with them, it's pretty obvious that they're just riding my coattails to boost their score. But it was really easy for him to get a car loan in his own name because the car dealership isn't nearly as specific as a mortgage lender is. So I definitely encourage it. Just add them as authorized users, but try not to co-sign on loans for them. And that's the perfect example of like, take my advice, I'm not using it anyway, because both of my kids, I'm co-signed on their loan just because I wanted them to get a better rate. I was just smart enough to make sure that the payments are auto-drafted out of my account. So if they don't give me cash, I'm not worrying about a late payment. So obviously everybody's situation is different, but anything you can do to help your kids, obviously the better. And if I can add them as an authorized user instead of giving them cash, I'm going to take that option all day long.
What age can you add kids?
16. And then at 18, they can get their own trade lines. I'm going to jump right into the next one just so we can kind of wrap this up. If you can't go to sleep tonight, Google the Fair Credit Reporting Act and you'll be out in like 5 minutes. It was originally passed back in the 70s. It's been updated and amended. Last one was back in 2003. What it basically says is every single item on a credit report has to be 100% accurate, 100% complete, and 100% verifiable. So we inundate the credit bureaus, forcing creditors and collection companies to prove that what they're reporting is correct. It's the beauty of that law. The client doesn't have to prove that the creditor is wrong. The creditor has to prove that they're right. So we send them requests for documentation, social security numbers, legal names, payment history, legal filings. There's original applications with original signatures, contracts, the whole 9. They've got 30 days to respond. If they don't respond in full with correct documentation, the law says that item has to be deleted from the credit report, whether it's legitimate or not. So we're getting paid to ask the question, and it's costing Wells Fargo time and money to answer the question.
So real quick on that point. So this is when I first met Skyler. I thought I knew how to fight credit, right? I've been doing it for years, helping people and telling them to write letters and do such. Then I met Skyler, and he mentioned some of this stuff that he was just talking about and having them have to prove everything. I mean, he could go detail on a huge laundry list of things they do. And those are the things that clients are never going to know about and they're never going to do. And those are how he fixes his credit. So that last slide there was crucial. I mean, he started telling me 5 things, and I'm like, you're hired. It was that easy. I had never heard of them. And the only way you would know about them is that the Fair Act.
Yep. It's
Who
basically
sees that, right? Who's ever even seen it?
nobody knows about it. That really is our secret recipe. Like that's what allows this machine to work. And then these are the list of items that we remove literally every day for our clients. I've got between 20 and 25,000 active clients in my program at any given point during the month. We'll probably get a few hundred foreclosures removed today, a few hundred bankruptcies, thousands of medical collections. To give you 2 really quick examples on how this works, a simple collection, like a medical collection, is our highest deleted item because we play Fair Credit Reporting Act against HIPAA. It's really sneaky, but it's also really effective. And if you've ever seen a medical collection on a credit report, there's a 95% chance that it tells you who the creditor is, who the collection company is, but it doesn't tell you who the doctor was. It's going to say medical data, medical payment data, unknown medical, some BS variation that says you owe some doctor here in the Treasure Valley, but they don't tell you who, how, or what. So the way I look at it, if you've got the audacity to report medical collection, but you don't have the decency to tell me who I owe, I'm going to go after that with laser-guided precision. And if they can't tell me who the doctor is, they're violating Fair Credit Reporting Act. If they tell me who the doctor is, they're violating HIPAA. It's really awesome. Plus, medical collections sell for like 4 cents on the dollar. So knowing the economics going into it, it makes sense why a company isn't going to fight very much because all they really want to do is scare the next person they get on the phone into paying full price, and they're going to double their money. Yes, sir.
Does anybody look at it negatively if they use someone to help them with their credit?
No. What we do does not show up on the credit report. That's a great question. Because oftentimes credit repair gets confused with credit counseling. Credit counseling, there are nonprofit organizations out there like Consumer Debt Counseling where they basically assume your monthly bills. They file a limited power of attorney, so your credit card bills start going to this company. They charge a small monthly fee. They starve your creditors for 3 to 6 months until they're just about ready to send you to collections or get a judgment against you. And then companies come in like a knight in shining armor and try and negotiate settlement offers. What they don't tell you is, we're going to let your credit cards go 30, 60, 90 days late. Your phone's going to blow up and you're going to get harassed all day long for these bills. Credit counseling shows up on the credit report as the reddest of red flags that says, I can't even manage my own money, so I've got to pay this third party to do it for me. Big bad news. Credit repair does not show up on a credit report. What we do has nothing but a positive impact on their scores. Does that make sense? So we get medical collections removed in the exact same way we get bankruptcies removed. You look at a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, because it's the most popular. A lot of the most successful people have one. I've got one. Chapter 7 bankruptcy is like an umbrella. The public record is the part that keeps you dry, and the discharge trade lines are the handle. I go after all those discharge trade lines first through that exact same process. I'll send an investigation to Discover Card. Hey, this $10,000 credit card, please provide the borrower's full social security number, legal name, and mailing address. 9 times out of 10, Discover sees that was written off the books through a PK. 30 days goes by, and that Discover trade line is removed from the credit report. I do the exact same thing with all those discharged debts until I get to the public record. And because I've removed that handle, I've now rendered that public record inaccurate, incomplete, and unverifiable because I've removed all the reporting trade lines underneath that bankruptcy. Then I send a request out to the Ada County Clerk and Recorder and say, hey, please provide me with the trustee paperwork in that bankruptcy discharge. If you can find anybody in a government position that can do anything within 30 days other than send you a bill, it's probably a private sector employee masquerading as a government employee. And after 30 days, the public record is removed as well. So no matter what it is, it's removable. It's attackable. I don't care if it's legit or if it's completely in error. My job is to force the creditors to prove that what they're reporting is factually accurate. If they can't do that, it has to be removed. These are just a small list of companies that admit their data has been hacked or compromised in the last 10 years, and it's damn near terrifying. I never went to Target. My parents didn't make a lot of money, but they did buy me school clothes at Target, so maybe that's the same thing. Already talked about the Home Depot Lowe's difference. I've never done business with Citibank because if they can't spell city right, I'm not giving them my money. And then everybody knows about Equifax. That was about 2 years ago. 40% of consumers in the United States had their data compromised. Marriott was the big one. They started getting hacked in 2014 and finally admitted it back in 2018. 500 million consumers globally had their personal information compromised. I could put PlayStation up here. Just about every company, Amazon was hacked. Like, it's everybody's susceptible to this stuff. And if you don't know what's on your report, you might find that you've got your own personal Kathy Woodward to blame. And then this is our pricing. I spend a lot of time on the road. I spend a lot of time letting my competition pitch me on their service. They're usually a lot more expensive and they don't go into even half the resources that we provide for our clients. Like I said, we don't advertise our company. You'll never see a pop-up ad on Google for Continental Credit. You'll never hear a radio ad like I am our marketing. So we offer a $100 referral discount to all of our clients. So to start up, it's going to be $89 and then $79 a month with no contract. Average client is with me for 4.5 months. Some more, some less. But if you look at the math, even if you're with me for a year and you spend $1,000 and all I do is help you save $1,000 in that first year on your car insurance, it's probably one of the best returns on investment you'll get for that price. Yes?
How do you compare to Lexington Law?
How do you compare to the worst realtors in the country? Lexington Law is the largest credit repair company in the country. They also have zero incentive to return clients back to their referral partners. And all that Lexington does is dispute negative items. If you want to get Paul really worked up, ask him how he feels about disputes. Because dispute verbiage is doing nothing more than taking that derogatory item out of the scoring formula and artificially inflating the score. Disputes are what I consider the Barney Fife treatment. You're firing one bullet at that derogatory item by saying, this isn't mine. And all the creditor has to do is verify 2 data points and they say, that is yours. Now you have no more bullets. Instead, I ask for documentation. I've got 45 different templates that I'll send out asking for generic, slightly more specific, and then fine-tooth comb kind of details. So I'm operating within the law, within the letter of the law. Lexington is just saying this doesn't belong to my client. Plus, if I don't get loans back to my referral partners, I'm not getting more referrals. So I've got a vested interest in making sure that these clients get cleaned up and back to the original referral source as quickly as possible. That's the big difference. Plus, I think they're more expensive and they lock people into a 6-month or a 12-month contract.
Well, I've seen them online.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They're everywhere. Like creditrepair.com is a subsidiary of Lexington Law. Like they're everywhere. Between them and Credit Karma, they're probably the best lead gen company in the world. They just don't provide a lot of great results. Yes.
In light of all of the people who have had their systems hacked and our information stolen, do you recommend an alarm?
I've got LifeLock on my credit. I mean, $20 a month is a small price to pay for peace of mind. So that is the end. I think Paul has some goodies for some folks. I really just want to thank you all for your time. I know how valuable every minute is. Hopefully you learned something out of it. If not, then I apologize. But if you have questions, I'm always just a text message or an email away. Call me old school. It's tough to get me to actually talk on the phone because I'm always busy. But with that.
Okay, so who has kids doing finals right now? I'm the only one who's got a kid in finals?
Finals are kind of toddler.
Yeah, you're not there yet. Okay, well, so we're going to do a little test here. We got some stuff to go over. So everybody, send me your business cards down. And we're not going to have you just answer. I'm going to pick on you guys. So, and there is no wrong answer here, right? So everybody send your cards down. Okay, so now we got some simple and hard questions. And again, there is no wrong answer here. And we got some, has everybody met Brenda by chance from Pioneer Title?
Hi.
So I'm going to give my Brenda a little pitch. Brenda's an escrow officer. And as a loan officer, I work with a lot of them, right? I go to every one of my closings. And the one difference I see with Brenda and Pioneer Title, and whether you like Pioneer Title or not, is that when it comes down to the quitclaim deeds and the homeowner's exemption, she files them for the new buyers. And that is huge because there's a good chance a buyer is going to lose that one piece of paper in the 120 pages that they have and not do their homeowner's exemption. And they're going to lose out on that $100,000 savings, right, or on taxes. So Brenda takes care of that. And then also we never like to close a loan in a trust. So we always try to put it back into the individual's names. And then right after that, we need to put it back in the trust. And Brenda takes care of that. So of all the things that Brenda does, those are the two that I absolutely love for my clients. There's a lot more things, a lot of the marketing that we can talk about, but you got her card. I would recommend, especially if you're a newer agent, call her, call Tiffany too. Tiffany's our marketing person, and they can help you on a lot of really cool stuff. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I got coffee cards, I got a card for the village, I got some, these are the special packets, we don't know what's in them, so it's like pick a door A or door B. So we're just gonna randomly do this and ask, Jerry, where's Jerry? Jerry right there. Okay, so what's the difference between credit repair and credit counseling or debt relief?
Credit counseling basically lets your credit lapse 90 days before they negotiate, and credit repair is they take it off.
Bingo bango.
Bingo bango.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Coffee Village or the secret bags? Which one?
What's it? The coffee village?
Coffee, Starbucks. You got a
Secret bag.
secret bag for Jerry. Okay, is it dinner?
I wonder which company paid for those Starbucks gift cards.
Okay, it's not yet. It's dinner.
Attention.
Where's dinner? Oh, there we are. I'm sorry. Okay, ready? Okay, why are scores so different from one credit bureau to the next?
Oh, because of the 55 different algorithms.
Nailed it. Even the number.
Oh,
Yes.
what would you like?
I'll take a coffee card or something.
Coffee card. There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Oh, we got one that fell. Miss DOS. Okay. Why are Credit Karma scores so misleading?
There was still
Good job.
Judges, we'll accept that answer. Very nice.
What can we get you?
Village card left?
Which one?
Is the village card left?
The Village card. That's a good one. All right. Pass that down. Okay, Frank. I'm gonna pick the hardest question for you. What's the best way to establish or build credit?
Establish or build,
Establish or build credit.
you could get a secure credit card. That's one way.
Yeah, nailed it.
Build credit by
Get a credit
using
card.
your card, pay off the balance before you get interest every month.
Or we'll also accept call Skyler.
Brilliant.
Okay, is it Kesa?
Kaisa.
Kaisa. All right. We'll work on my pronunciations. Okay. What is the best way? Let's see. Oh, I just asked that one. Collections. To pay or not pay and why?
Ooh. But it depends also, but collections to pay or not pay, like, depends on what it is. Like he was talking about whether they said, like, if you could prove who the doctor was, and if it's not, you can have to take it off, so.
We'll accept that as well.
So go over that just a little.
The short answer is you don't want to pay off collections unless you can get a deletion letter. Because one of the columns on the credit report is called date of last activity. And collections are based not on the dollar amount, but how fresh the wound is. So if you pay a collection, even though the logical part of your brain says, I'm taking care of my financial responsibility, I should get rewarded, the bureaus look at it as a fresh collection that just hit your credit report because it updates that date of last activity. So 99.9% of the time, don't pay it. Let the sleeping dog lie, don't poke the bear, pick your cliche. But you're also correct in that if it's not accurate, you sure as heck don't want to pay it because then you're admitting guilt to something that you don't even owe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
There we go. Okay. Glad we asked that one. And
Do I get some?
oh yeah, I'm sorry. What would you like? You didn't answer it right now. What would you like? We got the secret bags.
I'll
or
take a mystery bag.
a
I'm fine
mystery
with that,
bag.
yeah.
There you
Is our
go.
friend Frank over here?
Oh, did I not get you anything, Frank? You guys gotta stay on top of me. What can we get you, Frank? Mystery bag, got A or B,
Oh,
and
see, this is
cards.
what I'm talking
Credit
about.
cards.
All right. We pass it back.
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry about that, Frank. Okay, Noah, who do we got? Noah. Cards and Patty's on top here. So Patty, how many points will cost me how many points will it cost when a lender pulls my credit? And what about if I pull my own credit?
I think when it's your own, it's 3, and if it's a lender, 20.
Trying not to give away the answer with my eyes.
Close.
She had the number. She just had it flipped. If you pull your own, it's 0 for educational
Oh, that's
purposes.
for the
Right.
soft. Okay,
Yep,
yeah.
exactly.
Soft is not.
There you go.
Really?
Oh, everybody gets something. Come on. So it's the age of entitlement. Everybody gets a trophy.
What
What's that?
That's funny.
You got Starbucks gift cards, and we got secret bags. Secret bags. Okay, while we're doing that, okay, Judy Rose.
Yeah.
That one. Okay, next question. Why are credit cards such an important piece of the score?
It's 30%.
So this is nice.
Why did it?
Why are credit cards such an important piece of the score?
Yeah, 30% of your score.
Final answer?
Is credit card.
That's what you're going with? All right. What can I get you?
What do you
I got a secret bag full of goodies, or I got Starbucks cards. Go get a copy. All right. And then we got right next to you, Jackie. Okay, Jackie. How many credit cards are too many?
How many is too many?
Yeah.
For me, it's 3.
I think that's actually good.
It's probably the right answer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Too
kind of
many-
a trick question because
Yeah.
there really is no such thing. It's just the only wrong number is 0. So and it's good that you know your limits. Nice work. Nice work.
So I do got questions. So trade lines.
Yeah.
Okay. So trade lines are just the lines of credit you might have. Is there a minimum number that you need to see? I know kind of where we're at.
A good rule of thumb, a good ratio is for every one installment loan you can have up to 3 revolving. So if you got 1 car loan, 3 credit cards is a pretty good ratio. The point to that is you just don't want to see somebody who has only credit cards and no installment loans, or 3 car loans and no credit cards. Just a good variety.
And one more thing, because we didn't touch on it, inquiries.
3 to 5 points. As far as
I looked at a loan the other day, 25 inquiries on this loan. I mean, it was his own page, all right? And I mean, he was down. I mean, it's pretty easy. See, do the math.
Inquiries are okay. So if you're in the 500s, an inquiry is going to cost you 3 points, basically. If you're in the 600s, it's closer to 4 points, and if you're in the 700s, it's going to be closer to 5 points. You're going to earn half of those points back after 6 months, and then after 12 months, you've earned all the points back. They're no longer hurting you, but they will show up on your report for up to 24 months, just for historical purposes to show your request to borrow habits.
Those are hard pulls, though,
Correct,
right?
correct.
So, like, when you sign up for utilities and stuff,
That's a soft inquiry,
pulls,
right?
yeah.
Because you're not financing a product or a
Right,
service.
okay.
The one thing I totally forgot to touch on, and I apologize. I'm sure all of you have heard the idea that there are shopping windows that exist in the mortgage industry. Like, I can go to 3 or 4 mortgage companies within a certain period of time in order to check for the best rate. That is one of the biggest myths out there. Technically, TransUnion allows a 45-day shopping window for inquiries within the same industry. Experian and Equifax are going to ding you every single time you pull credit, even if it's on the same day in the same industry. And I've had a lot of loan officers that have had to kind of help realign their fundamental beliefs on how shopping windows work. And now loan officers that actually know the real deal.
They don't do that.
Correct. They can actually use that as a closing tool as opposed to an opportunity to let somebody walk out of their office. Like, hey, you're a 622 right now. If you go across the street, you're going to be a 618. Let's lock you in right now so you don't have to worry about financing anymore, and let's get you connected with an agent. But it's one of the biggest misconceptions out there because, again, logically, I'm about to buy a $500,000 property. I should be able to make sure I'm getting the best rate. Fact of the matter is, rates are rates. And if you're a 620, you're a 620. And there might be you might have an 1/8 of a point difference from one company to the next, but I guarantee you're going to pay for it in closing costs and other fees. So shopping windows only exist in 1/3 of the bureaus, but everybody thinks that it's like universal. It's really not. So
Yeah, those inquiries, I see people, they'll go to 4 or 5 car dealerships in the day. You know, they all get pulled. Same thing, I'm looking at mortgage loans. They'll go to 3 or 4 people. And in the end, I just have to write a lot of letters explaining that they didn't get any debt. All right, Linda Young. Oh, I'm horrible at that. I brought all the gifts. Okay, we got the bag or we got the card? Which one?
The bag has a planner and a stainless steel mug.
You think, which one? Card? Okay. All right, Linda, how long will a bankruptcy or tax lien stay on the credit report?
Depends on if you get it removed. Sorry. I don't remember. 7, 4.
it's actually it's seven for bankruptcies and tax liens. And I totally missed that bullet point, so that's my fault. Or maybe I was just setting it up for if you hire Continental Credit, it could be a lot less.
This is part of the learning. That's why we got the questions. So, I'm sorry about that. There's 3 of you I forgot.
Card.
All right. Okay, the very last question. What's the difference between reporting statutes and collection statutes?
Man, who put these questions together? That was me. I missed that one as well.
Oh, wait. I didn't
so
even
wrapped
bring
up.
the person. Hold on. I already answered one. Let's see. Someone's got to try to answer that. Rachel,
Yes.
Take a stab.
take a stab. What's the difference between a reporting statutes and collection statutes? We talked about collections.
Reporting
What
statutes,
do you think it is?
reporting statutes are from the actual company, right?
Credit collections can report for 7 years on a credit report, but the state of Idaho only allows 4 years for collection for the actual right to collect. So if you've got a collection from DirecTV, it might stay on your report for up to 7 years, but that collection company only has a 4-year window to get the money, which is just one more example of how evil collection companies are and how they try and scare people into paying, oftentimes when they're not legally allowed to pay anymore.
Interesting, huh? And I give you a choice. You can have this one or this one. Okay, well, that's really it. I mean, it's enough info. Hopefully, you got to be a little more dangerous. Talking about credit, the key. I always look at things on how can you close more deals, right? Because that's what we all get paid on closing deals, on commission based. So if you're talking to clients in advance and asking them, you can even ask them, what is your credit karma score? Because everybody knows about it, everybody can see it, right? And you'll have a range. And I tell people to do that all the time before I look it up. Now, I know it's like Zillow, right? It's plus or minus 17%, give or take. But it's a good starting point because the guy tells me he's a 550 FICO, and we put the brakes on. I turn not into going to be a lender, but I turn into an educational person, and I need to help them, right? Because there's definitely someone giving bad advice or no one giving any advice. So that's where we talk, and then I turn them over to Ben and Scott, right? The other people, if they're starting out at a higher rate, then we can start playing the game and get them a loan. So it really, and that's going to be, and look, you get people pre-qualified. A lot of lenders out there will just get anybody pre-qualified, but then they can't close the deals. So you need strong pre-qualification lenders, people that actually care, and we do care. I mean, I tell people all the time that you don't need to be buying a house right now. You can't even afford a tire for your car, right? So let's put the brakes on, and then let's get things fixed, and then move forward. So that's really it on the lending. Please, there's more food to eat. Please. Thank you for coming. I hope you guys got something great out of this. Oh, lastly, hey, this thing's called Third Thursday. Today's the third Thursday of the month, right? We, Brenda and I and a few other people, we do something every third Thursday. This one's educational. We do wine tasting, we do axe throwing, we do all types of stuff, right? Because life's too short. We live in a great, place here. So life's too short just to work. So we have things that we do all the time. You guys are all more than welcome. They're free. They're open to realtors, friends, family. Just trying to get people out to do more fun things. And just lastly, if Krista Deacon wasn't here, none of this would happen. So, oh, hey, Krista. Okay. So give it up for Krista. Hey.
One last thing that I didn't mention, but I want to say till the end. If any of you personally or any friends, family, potential clients, if you'd like them to talk to me, just like we all try and coach our own individual referral partners in that none of us get too excited when one of your referral partners says, hey, I gave your number out to a client, let me know when they call you. If you have clients that you'd like to have connect with me, you can either send them directly to Paul or you can send them directly to me. The one thing I would ask is get me their name and phone number so I have a much higher chance of connecting and converting them. Sad reality is that a lot of people out there with credit issues, if they were responsible enough to call me for me just giving them my card, they wouldn't need to call me to begin with. But we do free credit pulls, free in-depth credit analysis for all of our referral partners and anybody in your circle of influence. So I'm sure there's probably some of you that have met some people in the past few months where credit is the biggest obstacle. I'd love to talk to them. And the one thing I can promise you is I'm never going to sign somebody up if it's not going to benefit them and if we can't help them financially. If somebody's past due on their credit cards, I'm not going to take $79 a month. I'm going to tell them to get their credit cards down below their limit, and then let's reevaluate. So we're always looking out for their best interests, because if I sign somebody up that I can't help, they're not going to yell at me. They're going to yell at you. So I just need their name and their phone number, and then the rest we'll update Paul or update you individually, whatever's easier for you. So
and I'm proof that is the truth. I mean, I tell people I'm going to have them call you. And that way I know it's getting done. Because again, commission based, we want to get those deals done for everybody. Because it's not only me, it's a string of people. It's you, it's the appraiser, it's the inspector. We all get paid when the deal goes through. So if I can help push that through a little faster, it's a win-win for a lot of people. Hey, thank you very much for coming. And you don't have to leave. If you want to talk to Skyler, ask him more questions, please do so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.